It's Friday, April 17. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simona Absalom. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says his ministry, with the help of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, is working assiduously to secure the much-needed supplies to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, which have been delayed or in some instances blocked by measures put in place by the United States of America.
We have had some difficulties with materials coming in for the COVID response, and this is as a result of the correspondence that we have had from our suppliers. So we have suppliers that we deal with, that we purchase routinely from. Of course, with this particular scenario, we have had to ratchet up the request for supplies. And in 3 or 4 cases, the correspondence that we have received from those suppliers have been that stocks have been delayed, or in some instances the wording is more significant, blocked by the new measures that have been put in place. Now, I know that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade has been working, Minister Johnson Smith, to try and assist in some of these cases, and we have had some successes in the cases that I know she has worked on, and her team, she and her team. But nevertheless, it has caused delays in a number of cases, and there are still pending cases where we still have not gotten some of the supplies that we would like to get.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says more than ever there is a need for unity if Jamaica is to win the fight against COVID-19. Marlon Samuels tells us more.
The Alarica situation is the dominant challenge for us now in the country as it relates to COVID-19 and the response. It represents for us the weak link, if you will, in the arsenal and the work that we have been doing. It is going to be and is very difficult to reach all those individuals, but even more so to contact trace all the persons that they have come in contact with. And given the extent to which we have had positive tests, it is quite clear that the possibility or the likelihood of spread by one of those individuals to their friends, neighbors, the taxi driver, the restaurant, wherever they go, the possibility for spread are real, and it is something that we need to take very seriously. Hence, the measures that have been announced by the government, by the Prime Minister, are about St. Catherine.
Of the 787 people employed at the company, 559 reside in St. Catherine. Contact has been made with 447 of them. There are reported discrepancies in the address and telephone numbers of the remaining staff complement. There is concern that some may have fled the parish of St. Catherine after the announced lockdown. The potential threat of not finding the employees are a clear and present danger to Jamaica's public health system and all Jamaicans. It slows the ability of health authorities to test and to do contact tracing in a bid to slow or even stop the spread of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19.
I'm not fully clear that there was a mass exodus as is being projected, given the time period between the announcement and the curfew. But I do accept that there would be sufficient time for some, if they so desired, to leave. And to the extent that those would have left, they would represent a risk. And what we need to do is to appeal to them to, particularly if they are linked to the Alarica entity, either directly or indirectly, to call the 888 number so we can take whatever measures are necessary to ensure that they are safe, and by extension, the community that they interact with is safe.
COVID-19 is becoming a defining moment for Jamaica. It has changed the lives of most Jamaicans, evidenced by an unplanned and rapid thrust to becoming digital citizens. There are new work-from-home policies, extended school closures and homeschooling, woven with lengthy lines at supermarkets and pharmacies. There are also new social mores, including staying 6 feet away from others. COVID-19 has brought pain and mourning to the families of those who succumbed to the virus. It is bringing financial difficulties to others. It's also a defining moment for Jamaicans. It's an opportunity to unite.
It is possible for us to practice the social distancing, the sanitizing, the temperature checks, the measures that have been put into the protocol to allow industry to continue while still observing the public health risks that are there.
Together we can, by our actions, win the battle being waged by COVID-19. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness has been advised that one of its employees assigned to the head offices has tested positive for COVID-19. In keeping with its own established protocol for infection prevention and control, the ministry has decided to suspend operations at the head office buildings in New Kingston on Friday, April 17. This suspension of operation will allow for sanitization exercise in all the buildings. Contact tracing at the head office has commenced, and some members of staff, including the permanent secretary, Mr. Dunstan Bryan, has been home quarantined. The Kingston and St. Andrew Health Department will continue to interview, sample and test other staff members who would have had close contact with the employee in the last 14 days. The head offices are scheduled to reopen for normal operation come Monday, April 20, 2020. A 6-year-old girl is the first person in Trelawny to have been infected with the deadly COVID-19. Since then, the Low River community has become somewhat of a ghost town as residents have seemingly locked themselves indoors, fearing that they may become infected with the new coronavirus. The infected child, who resides in St. Catherine, had reportedly gone to spend time with relatives in Low River over the Easter holiday. The child is said to be a contact of a confirmed case of COVID-19. The Ministry of Health and Wellness says more stringent health guidelines for the business processing output sector will be available by the weekend. The ministry's statement came after 52 of the island's 143 COVID-19 cases have been linked to the BPO company, Alorica. The ministry also disclosed that health inspections were carried out between March 14 to April 15 of 62 of the country's 68 BPO centers. 50 of the BPO companies passed inspections. 12 were provided with work plans to address issues after failing to meet the ministry's health guidelines for workplaces. Alorica in Portmore St. Catherine passed the ministry's health inspection.
We do not have at this time the detailed inspection reports for all parishes in terms of all the entities inspected. We have a summary report, and so what has been indicated, if I may share, is that, for example, in St. James there were 2 that did not meet the standard. And when we say not meeting this standard, while the general building and infrastructure was okay, it was in terms of, in particular for the COVID-19 circumstances, the not observing of social distancing, and in terms of the type of chemicals they would have been using for sanitization and disinfection, which would have been corrected for some of them already. And so I can't give the detail in terms of whether or not Sutherland, I think, was the BPO you mentioned, in terms of whether or not that one was found not meeting the standard. I don't have the list of the 12 that would have not met the standard just yet. I do know that Alorica in St. Catherine, however, based on the inspection report received, did meet the standard at the time that it was inspected.
The government will be seeking legal advice on whether workers from the business process outsourcing outfit, Alorica in Portmore St. Catherine, who have been quarantined due to COVID-19 will be paid for the period under lockdown. The Prime Minister Andrew Holness gave the assurance in response to queries from opposition Member of Parliament for St. Catherine Southern, Fitz Jackson, during a parliamentary session this week. Mr. Jackson gave some suggestions.
From a humanitarian standpoint, the government, as a care package through the Ministry of Finance, if those persons in those, and they are specified set of workers, if you could incorporate those as one specific group that would be dislocated because of the circumstance of the COVID situation in their workplace, and you treat them as a special case.
And this was the response from the Prime Minister.
I wouldn't pretend to say anything about the care program and whether or not it could accommodate, we could make any special provision to a program that's already announced. The Minister of Finance would have to see whether or not that could fit. But I would say that the question that you have raised is one that should be pursued with the industry. And I am undertaking that when I speak to because I have to speak to the industry players again before the week is out, I will undertake to raise that issue with them to see what should be the position that they take in this crisis on that specific issue.
Standard & Poor's S&P on Thursday affirmed Jamaica's B+ long-term foreign and local currency sovereign credit ratings and revised its outlook from stable to negative. According to S&P, the revision in outlook reflects the impact of a presumed prolonged shock from the ongoing global COVID-19 health crisis on the Jamaican economy. S&P estimates that the pandemic will negatively impact GDP due largely to significant declines in tourism and related activities and an overall reduction in foreign exchange earnings and tax revenues. S&P further projects that the economic contraction is likely to be more moderate than in many Caribbean sovereigns due to the relatively higher level of diversification of the Jamaican economy. It is the agency's expectation that economic recovery will start to pick up in 2021 with full recovery by 2022-2023. However, this will be dependent on the recovery of Jamaica's close economic partners. In a release, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark is quoted saying, "At this unprecedented time of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is significant that another international credit rating agency, S&P, has maintained Jamaica's credit rating at B+, even as several other countries have had their ratings downgraded." End quote. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says Jamaica has requested rapid financing from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. Dr. Clark said that the request was made Wednesday. The rapid financing instrument provides rapid financing to IMF member countries with balance of payment needs, but without the requirement of having a full-fledged IMF program, ongoing reviews, and conditionality. Last week, on April 6, the IMF substantially increased the amount that member countries could access under the RFI window. In a press release, Dr. Clark said that though the country does have the ability to absorb economic shocks, the duration of the global lockdown is highly uncertain. He said, quote, "For those reasons, we believe it is prudent to access and have these resources available. The IRF, as the name suggests, should result in a quick disbursement in a matter of weeks." End quote. The right move. That's how the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association describes the government's decision to access the International Monetary Fund's rapid financing instrument, the RFI, in preparation to navigate the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. The decision of the government, announced in a news release by the Minister of Finance and Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, will ensure that the country is provided with rapid financing to as a member of the IMF member countries with balance of payment needs, but without the requirement of having a full-fledged IMF program, ongoing reviews, or conditionality. The association says the manufacturing and export community is committed to continuing to play its part in response and recovery efforts. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says the initial $250 million Jamaican dollars of the $1 billion committed to long-awaited tourism workers' pension scheme by the government has been paid over to the newly selected fund manager, Sagicor Jamaica Limited. Mr. Bartlett noted that he is currently awaiting the House's approval of the regulations, which will pave the way for the scheme's implementation once industry workers return to their jobs. The pension scheme is a defined contributory plan supported by legislation. Mandatory contributions will be required by workers and employers. The Tourism Workers Pension Scheme is designed to cover all workers ages 18 to 59 years with the tourism sector, whether permanent, contract, or self-employed. Benefits will be payable at the age of 65 years or older. Jamaica's unemployment figure remains low at 7.3%. This from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Director General Carol Coy. The figures are based on the January 2020 labor force survey.
The unemployment rate for January 2020 was 7.3%, which was 0.7 percentage points lower than the rate of 8% in January 2019.
Additionally, Ms. Coy said the number of persons in jobs as of January 2020 increased by 3% compared to the corresponding period last year.
When looking at the employed labor force by occupation group, the largest increase in employment was in the occupation group, service workers, and shop and market sales workers. There were 301,500 persons employed in this group, an increase of 22,700 persons, or 8.1%, when January 2020 is compared to January 2019.
The Director General also gave a breakdown of the employment figures based on gender.
There were 690,300 employed males in January 2020. This was an increase of 16,800 males compared to January 2019. There were 578,800 employed females in January 2020, an increase of 19,600. Males accounted for 54.4% of the employed labor force and females 45.6%.
She was speaking during a STATIN virtual media briefing at the agency's head office in Kingston on Thursday, April 16. The public transport sector is being given more time to renew their road licenses. The Transport Authority will be waiving fees and extending the period for renewal. The objective is to continue the movement of the public transport sector as the country deals with the coronavirus pandemic. The Minister of Transport and Mining, Robert Montague, addressed the issue in the House of Representatives. National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang says the zones of special operations in Denham Town, Kingston and Mount Salem St. James will be extended by a further 60 days to June 20 and July 9, respectively. The House of Representatives on Tuesday approved 2 resolutions for the extensions. The ZOSOs were declared in Mount Salem and Denham Town in September and October 2017, respectively. As schools continue to remain closed due to the coronavirus pandemic, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Owen Speed, is proposing that the Caribbean Examinations Council, CSEC, scrap this year's CSEC and CAPE exams and use the school-based assessment grades to evaluate students. CSEC recently announced that it was working with representatives from education ministries across the region for a solution to the holding of the May-June exams as schools remain closed. Mr. Speed is suggesting that the exams be scrapped as the organization has enough data from the school-based assessments to assign grades to students. And following exclusive debate on the measures in Parliament Tuesday night and further consultations and review are still ongoing to finalize the Gazette of the orders, the government of Jamaica is indicating that the final Gazette was to be published Thursday night. Media personnel will remain exempt and will be allowed to move about in pursuit of their mandate during the period of lockdown in the parish of St. Catherine. Special protocols will be proposed and discussed with the media associations to ensure that public health operations are not impeded during coverage. Job loss and the government's care relief package are just some of the issues that will be highlighted in today's business report with Gabrielle Thompson.
As the Jamaican economy grapples with the effects of the coronavirus, many people are faced with job loss. To combat this, the government announced that it would, through the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, provide financial assistance to persons who lost their jobs as a result of the coronavirus outbreak. This temporary cash transfer program is expected to assist with cushioning any financial blows dealt to individuals and businesses during the ongoing pandemic. The relief program, called the CARE program, has 7 components that are designed to reach the most affected sectors. Speaking at the March 24 sitting of the House of Representatives, Minister of Finance and the Public Service Dr. Nigel Clark explained the government's COVID-19 small business grant.
All small businesses with sales of 50 million or less who file tax returns in the 2019-20 financial year and who file payroll returns indicating that they have employees on staff, Mr. Speaker, will be eligible for a one-time COVID small business grant of $100,000, Mr. Speaker. They will be required to fill out a form online, providing their banking information, much like the best cash and the set cash. The process will involve verification of a submitted tax return for 2019-20, as well as the submission of relevant payroll returns relating to the employees that the small business may have.
The Finance Minister says the COVID-19 allocation of resources for employees CARE program will benefit thousands of bartenders, gardeners, security guards, and other categories of workers. The Business Employee Support and Transfer of Cash Best Cash program is to assist registered businesses with operating within the tourism industry.
The program has a number of elements, and I'll just summarize them. So the first one I want to share is one that we call the Business Employee Support and Transfer of Cash program, the Best Cash program. And what that will do is that one is specifically targeted for the tourism sector and attractions and tour companies who have been hardest hit. And what we're saying to those businesses is for every employee you retain who is below the income tax threshold of $1.5 million, we, the government, will transfer an amount of $9,000 per fortnight paid monthly for the months of April, May, and June.
The Set Cash initiative is set to support employees with cash transfers.
The second program is called the Set Cash program, which is supporting employees with the transfer of cash. And this program is for employees in any sector who have been dislocated from their jobs. And in particular, this is a program that will be accessible online, and tax information would have to be provided.
And just over $1 billion has been set aside to assist small operators within the tourism sector.
We will also set aside funds for the tourism industry, and in particular the smaller operators in the tourism industry. There are over 1,000 operators, whether it be small hotels or attractions or tour companies and so forth. And we'll be setting aside $1.2 billion for the hardest hit, for the most vulnerable of those companies. So we are working on a program for this broad group of persons who may not be formally employed. And we have reserved a sum that we'll be transferring to address this segment. The amount of the payment is not yet determined, but it will just be something to offer support.
Visit www.wecare.gov.jm for more information on the CARE program. Browse the brochure provided to see if you qualify for financial aid and complete your application online. Beneficiaries are expected to receive their payouts within 30 days after application and confirmation that all eligibility requirements are met. The grant value will be paid directly to the applicant's bank account or to a remittance agency where applicable. Application for the program began on Thursday, April 9. In Wednesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index declined by 7,605 points to close at just under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 83 stocks, of which 15 advanced, 55 declined, and 13 traded firm. The junior market index declined by 98 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Cargo Handlers, Consolidated Bakeries Jamaica, and First Rock Capital Holdings Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, 1834 Investments, and Access Financial Services Limited. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper, Siboney Group Limited, and Denham Trading Company Preference Shares. Radio Jamaica Limited was the volume leader with over 95 million units, followed by Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with 36.6 million units, and Denham Trading Company with over 10 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Thursday, April 16, ended trading at $140.56. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $100.52. The pound sterling traded for $175.41, and the euro ended trading at $155.77. Oil prices were mixed on Friday after the weakest Chinese economic data in decades showed the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, offsetting some earlier gains on optimism for President Donald Trump's early plans to revive the U.S. economy. Brent crude futures rose 54 cents to $28.36 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude gained 4 cents to $25.57 a barrel. And that's it for the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, there is still no confirmation in Trinidad and Tobago as to when students will be allowed to sit the secondary entrance assessment exam. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley addressed the matter at a press brief on Thursday. We get more from TTT News.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley said government is aware of anxiety on the part of both parents and the SEA candidates, but there is still need to take necessary precautions to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 virus.
The sort of average, if you look at the 5 days prior to that, our average.
In our anxiety to bring an end to this as early as possible, much as we would like it so to be, we have to be very careful that we don't do anything that gives the virus the opportunity for a resurgence.
Dr. Rowley said while recent COVID-19 statistics show a decrease in confirmation of infected persons, the situation remains one of a serious nature.
Pleased to hear today that the question that was asked is, what are we seeing? Are we seeing more people coming forward and presenting that they are infected? The answer is no, we're not seeing that. That does not mean that we are at the beginning of the end. We might be at the end of the beginning.
Countries across the region are bracing for fallout owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. Over in Guyana, however, Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu says the economy there will remain resilient. InfoHub's Felicia Valenzuela has that report.
Prime Minister Nagamutu, who's also the chairman of the National COVID-19 Task Force, NCTF, told Trinidad's CNC3 program host Hema Ramkisoon that while Ghana anticipates a 20 to 40% decrease in revenues due to the current global pandemic, if one section of the economy takes a dip, there are other resources which will assist to keep the economy afloat.
We had survived with much less in the past. We are looking towards the oil sector, but oil has to be complemented with the soil. We are rich. We have a diverse economy. We are rich in agriculture. Our rice production last year, for example, has touched one of the highest production, over 1 million ton of paddy and rice. And there's nothing to suggest that even COVID-19 has affected the rice sector.
The Prime Minister says nothing has been detected to affect the energy sector.
We do not detect any downturn in the oil and gas sector in production. Remember, these offshore activities, they're taking place 120 kilometers outside our shore, and they have their own methodologies. We have listed oil and gas as an essential sector. They're allowed to operate 24/7, as well as the onshore activities on the river fronts. Shipping lines have not been restricted. Port and wharves activities have not been curtailed. So we know of no measures that could affect production.
From as early as September 2019, The International Monetary Fund World Economic Outlook reported that Ghana's real gross domestic product growth is forecast to be 85.618% by December 2020. This has since been revised to 52.8%, and Prime Minister Nagamutu believes Ghana is still in a winning position. Felicia Valenzuela, InfoHub.
In sports, Jamaican and other Caribbean cricketers looking to feature in this year's Indian Premier League are set to lose out on their opportunity. This as the Board of Control for Cricket in India has suspended the 2020 tournament indefinitely because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This leaves the tournament stakeholders, including the players, facing a big setback as none of the IPL players will receive any money until the tournament actually takes place. Jamaicans Chris Gale, Andre Russell, Sheldon Cottrell, O'Shane Thomas and Fabian Allen are among the 12 Caribbean men contracted for the 2020 IPL season. And in other sporting news, the International Olympic Committee, IOC, and Tokyo 2020 have set up a joint steering committee to deliver the postponed Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2021. The committee was announced following an executive project review teleconference. Key elements of the planning for 2021 are set to replicate the Games delivery plan for 2020. Particular focus will be put on venues and the competition schedule, with Tokyo 2020 set to request with each venue owner full same schedule as 2020 on the new dates in 2021. And that's the news on PBCJ. Stay tuned for special COVID-19 PSA, and please stay home and stay safe. Stigma can prevent some people from seeking medical care, especially for COVID-19 related symptoms. So it's very important to avoid stigmatization. You can help to avoid this by understanding that words matter. You know, sticks and stones will break your bones, and words can hurt emotionally. So do talk about the new coronavirus, but don't attach home addresses or ethnicity to the disease. Do talk about people who have COVID-19, those who recovered, but don't dwell on people who died after contracting COVID-19. Don't refer to people with the virus as victims. Instead, you can talk about people acquiring or contracting the disease. Do share accurate information about risks like not practicing social distancing and preventative measures. Do obey government protocols and advisory, as they can save your life and those around you. And encourage others to do the same. Don't repeat or share information that is not confirmed or words that spread fear.